What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be installing my very first app on TrueNAS SCALE. Now, if you haven't seen the video of me going through the TrueNAS installation, link will be in the description box below. Make sure you check that out. And the app that I'm going to be installing today is Nextcloud. So Nextcloud is an open source file sharing and collaboration platform, kind of like Dropbox and Google Drive, except you host it yourself and you have full control over your data. I'm setting this up as part of my Homelab so I can have a centralized place to store and manage everything I'll be working on in this lab environment. One of my future goals is to set up Obsidian for note-taking and documentation. But before I can do that, I need a reliable file sharing system set up for this environment. So I decided to go with Nextcloud. This video is broken down into three main parts. So you have the pre-installation where I get everything ready before the installation. Then you have the installation where I work through the whole setup process. And then you have the post-installation where I fix some of the common issues that I run into. Timestamps are in the description box below. So feel free to jump around as you see fit. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do is that we're going to create a couple of data sets to help keep things organized in this environment. The reason being that what I want to do is I want to create an application data set where all of my applications are going to reside. And then when I do create other things, maybe a share or something like that, I will have like a different data set. Maybe we'll call it like share or something. I'm not sure yet. And we'll call it that. So there's that sort of separation and a bit of organization going where everything doesn't seem like it's all over the place. So if you don't know what a data set is, if you don't know what a storage is, if you don't know what TrueNAS is, you can check out my video of me installing TrueNAS on one of my devices, the AOStar Pro. The video, I will include the video in the description box below. So what you want to do is you want to go to datasets, and then you want to go to the main dataset. We're going to add a dataset, and we're going to call this dataset applications. All right. And then we're going to make this the dataset preset. We're going to call it apps, right? So again, this is where all of my applications are going to live moving forward. So we're going to create that. And we're going to create another dataset called Nextcloud, right? So for every single application I install, there's going to be a dataset in the application dataset for that particular app. So today we're doing Nextcloud. So we're going to go ahead and say Nextcloud. So we're going to say NXT. Okay, and then we also want to make that app and then click save. And it's telling you that, hey, to set ACL for this data set, don't worry about that yet. We'll talk about that in a minute. We're just going to say return to pull. Now we have our application data set, and in that data set, we have another one called Nextcloud. Now we're going to break that down a little bit more because we're going to need 3 data sets to be able to go through the Nextcloud installation. And again, it's very important to be able to keep things very organized when you're kind of building something, because when you're building an environment, because as you start building more and more, it might get a little bit crazy. And if you start keeping things very organized, it's a lot more easy for you to be able to, build things and be able to know where things are and don't have things all over the place. So in here, we're going to create 3 more data sets. The first one, we're going to call it app data. Okay, and then this one, we're going to make it also, the preset is also going to be app. And we're going to click save. And we're going to say return. And then we're going to create another one in Nextcloud. We're going to say add another data set. And then we're going to call this one user data. And then we're also going to make this one app. And then click save. And return to pull. And we're going to create one more. We're going to call this one, let's go ahead and click add. We're going to call this one Postgres data. And then this one, we're going to leave as generic. And then we're going to click save and then return. So now we've added 5 data sets in total. We have the application. I'm going to minimize things so you can see it. We have the application, we have Nextcloud, and in Nextcloud, we have 3 more data sets. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to set the correct permission to those data sets. So if we click on applications, if you scroll down a little bit, so you most likely going to be on the top, you want to scroll all the way down. If you scroll down a little bit, you're going to notice that the owner of this data set is root and the group of this data set is root. Now, because all of the other data sets in here inherits the same permission as the parents data set, which is the application data set, their owner and their group is also going to be root. If you try to go through the installation and try to just go straight up to apps right now and try to install Nextcloud, that installation will fail. because what you want to do is we want to go to application, we want to click on edit. And what we want to do, we want to make changes to this folder or this data sets so that the right owner and the right group is assigned. Now, the owner in the group that we want is www.data, right? And then the group that we want is also www.data. Now, the reason for that is because this group, the user and the group, is what is used to run the applications in this environment in a secure manner. So this user in the group doesn't necessarily have permission to the system as a whole, but it's what is used to run that particular application or those particular applications that you're going to be installing on TrueNAS. So you want this group and this user to have permission to that folder so it's able to run the application, because without it, well, the applications won't run, right? Or right permission that's needed is not assigned to the correct user. So because this user is trying to run that application and they don't have the right permission, and it would fail every time it tries to run. I hope that makes sense. So what you want to do is you want to click apply, and you want to change this to full. So we want to give it full access, and we want the owner to be full access. And then what you want to do is you want to say apply permission recursively. So basically what that means is that once you click it, it's going to say you want to confirm. You said yes, like clicking this as well. So what it means is that it's going to apply the permission to the parents folder, but it's also going to push that permission down to all of the subfolders in the application folder. And that's exactly what we want. So once you do that, you're just going to go ahead and click save, and it's going to go ahead and do its thing. So now if I go to the application folder, scroll back down a little, you're going to see now that the owner is www.data and the group is www.data. If I go to each and every one of this, it's going to be the same because, again, the permission gets pushed down from the parent folder. So this is the first step that we need to do to be able to install TrueNAS. But not only TrueNAS is also the thing that we need to do to make sure that the right permission is assigned to the application folder. So moving forward, when we run other application or other apps in this folder, we don't run into issue because the right user or the right group has access to the folder to be able to run things in that folder. The permission part is very important because if you do not set up the permission correctly, the installation will fail. Trust me, I know. But I did run into another issue because even after I did set up the right permission, I would get an error when the whole installation would just get stuck on deploying. And when I do try to visit the web UI, I would get a 4.3 forbidden error, which was a pain. But here's how I solved that issue. So that issue had me scratching my head for a while because to me, I'm like, okay, well, I already gave the right user the right permission to this folder. And it will work fine in terms of like going through the first phase of the deploying process, and it will get stuck on deploying. And when I click on the web UI, I will get a 403 error. It had me scratching my head for a while. And I think what was going on was that even though this user have access to this folder, www.data user and group didn't have access to get past the Koroma tech folder or dataset, whatever we're going to call it, but let's call it dataset. Let's stick to dataset. It didn't have access to be able to get past the dataset. So I'm like, okay, well, I can't really edit that because if I try to edit that, it tells me like, hey, this is roots and other, and I can't really edit it. I don't know if there's another way to edit it and I missed it, but I can't really edit it. So I'm like, I need to be able to know that this user, let me go back, this user have access or is able to get past this guy to be able to see all of this folder and have the right permission to this folder. So what I had to do is, I hope that makes sense. At least that was my logic. That was my logic, and that's how I resolved it. So what I had to do was that I had to go to systems, and then I had to go to shell, and then we're going to sudo into the admin user. Okay. And then what I had to do, let me clear that. What I had to do is I had to do chown, all right, chown, and I had to do dash capital R, and then we had to do www-data, and then colon www.data, and then we had to do and T, and then this is capital K, and we're doing asterisks. So basically what we're doing here is that we're giving this group and this user access to everything underneath this folder. So in my head, I'm like, okay, well, if it doesn't have access, let's just do it in the shell and then push access to everything underneath the Koroma tech data set, that is actually what fixed the issue for me. So that's pretty much all you have to run. So ch own the dash rm recursive, and then you list the group and the user, and then you tell the command what folder you want things to change on. So basically, I'm changing again everything in that Koroma Tech Lab folder. So everything, the asterisk basically means that like change everything underneath that folder. So you go ahead and click enter, and that's pretty much it. So let me go back one. So now if we go back here, let's just get back there. And then we'll just cd, and then we'll just cd into this guy, right? And then do ls or ls-la. So now we see that this guy, right? The user here is this, everything in the application folder, the user, and the owner is basically www data, which should already have been the case in the first place. And if I was to check it before I actually run the chown command, you would have seen that like that's what it already is, but for some reason it wasn't working. But doing that, let me go back, but running this guy right here, the chown command, to just kind of push that or force it, fix that for 3 issue. So that's pretty much it as far as permission and then pre-installation steps. So these are the only things that I had to do, because I ran into a whole bunch. Just keep in mind that I ran into a whole bunch of issues in terms of permission issues before doing this, and I wasn't able to install it at all. Okay, so now that we have all of the permissions issue taken care of, what we want to do is now go through the installation for Nextcloud. So to do that, you're going to go ahead and click on apps, and then we're going to go ahead and click on discover apps, and then you're just going to type in Next. And then it's going to come, Nextcloud is going to show up. So what you want to do is you want to click on Nextcloud. This is pretty much Nextcloud. We're going to go ahead and click on install. And this is kind of the installation process and the things that you have to enter. So there are a few things that you have to enter to get the installation up and running. Other things you will have to kind of come back and make changes, or change it now if you feel like you need that configuration to be set. But the things that I'm going to pay attention to here in this video are the things that I need to just get up and running. And because there's a whole bunch of changes that I have to make in my environment. And for you yourself, when you look at it, if you feel like there's some things that you need to change, you can go ahead and change that. So for admin user, this is the user that you're going to use to log in. You can call this whatever you want. I'm going to call it admin for now. For the password, again, this is the password that you use to log in. So you can call this whatever you want. So you can set this to whatever you want. I want to set it to something simple for now. And this is just a test, of course. And then as you go down, for app packages, these are some of the packages that you can install while you're going through this installation process. So if you click on this guy, for example, so this is for, I think it was like thumbnail, like video thumbnail preview. So you can click add because you want to install it while you go through the installation. If you have other ones that you want to install as well, so if you click add one more, you'll scroll down, and then SMB client would allow you to be able to access things through SMB share for Windows. And then if you click add more, you're going to click on this guy, which allows you to do like OCR. So to be able to do OCR support for things like PDF. I'm going to go ahead and click add again. And I think the last one here, and LibreOffice, which allow you to do like things like, I think it's document preview. But know that this is kind of like server side. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like container side. So if you want to do things like preview documents in the browser, you're going to have to use something different. This is not more so on that end. This is more on the container side of things. It's not more so on like the browser end of things, right? So if you want to go ahead and install those packages, you can go ahead and select those. Scroll down a little bit. For this guy, I'm going to leave blank for now. I'll scroll down. Host name, I am not going to import anything because I don't have anything set up yet. And also for all of the systems that I'm going to be setting up right now, I'm not going to try to access them externally yet. And I don't have any sort of DNS set up in this environment either to be able to have some sort of host name for this particular installation. That's something that I am going to do in my next video, set up DNS, set up DHCP, and set up like some sort of certificate 30 to be able to issue certificate in this lab environment. But I'm going to leave that blank for now for this demo. And then for Redis is used for caching. So you want to set the password for that. And then of course, this is for your Postgres database. So you can set the password for whatever you want. And then that's pretty much it as far as this section go. You scroll down a little bit, the network section. I'm not going to change anything here. If you do want to change the port, if you have another application running on this port, you can change the port. If this is your second installation, scroll down, because keep in mind that all of these applications are going to run on top of your TrueNAS server. So it's going to be your TrueNAS IP address and then whatever port you choose for that application. That's how you're going to be able to access it. Ideally, that's how you always access things that are running on top of like TrueNAS or something like that. So now if we scroll down, so this is why we created different data sets in our initial setup phase, in our pre-installation setup phase, right? Because we need each components to be point to their specific data sets. So for the app data, we're going to say, hey, we want to use host path. And then if we scroll down a little bit, all right, if we scroll down a little bit, we're going to say like, hey, we're going to click on here, Koroma Tech Lab, and click that, Nextcloud, and then app data, right? And then we're going to do the same for all of our other configuration. If we do that as well, we're going to say scroll down, Koroma Tech, and this is user data. So we're going to say user data, right? Because again, that's user data. And if we scroll down a little bit, the last one, this is for your Postgres data, right? Your database. So you want to click that, and we want to say, scroll down a little bit, and then we want to say Postgres, right? And then for Postgres, you definitely want to enable this guy. If you do not do this, the installation is going to fail, and you're going to have to manually go to this folder and then set the owner and the user. I have documentation on my website as well, so you can check that out if you want to go through that process. But to save yourself your headache, all you have to do is just click on automatic permission. So we're going to look at the configuration one more time for this guy. It's saying that there's one more thing. Okay, I clicked the language. I don't need that, so we're going to X out of that. So now we have everything checked. We're going to scroll down back a little bit. And if you run into an issue just like you saw earlier that I just did, you will get a red X mark next to, or red X next to whatever configuration you need to fix before you can move on. If I scroll down a little bit more, so that's pretty much it. So now you can select whatever CPU you want to use, or the amount of CPU that you want to use. You can do 2, you can do 4, whatever your system is capable of. And of course, same with memory. And again, this is just for demo. I want to reinstall everything. So you could choose whatever you want. I'll pass through if you need that enabled. I don't need that enabled right now. I don't need that enabled for Nextcloud, not in this environment at least. If you do, then you can check on this guy right here to enable that, but I don't need that in this environment, nor do I need that in this application. So that's pretty much it as far as all of the setup go. Now what we want to do is just go ahead and click install. It's going to go through the process. Again, I did run into a whole bunch of issue with permissions when I first kind of wanted to kick off the installation process. All of those things that I showed you guys how to do earlier, just make sure you do those things and take the time to make sure it's done right, because it was a bit of a headache for me to be. And I was reading online. It seems as if that was an issue, or it's a known issue when it comes to TrueNAS scale. But yeah, it took me a while to kind of get past that and be able to go through the installation. So give it a few. It takes a while for it to go through the installation. Don't stress. Just let it do its thing. And then now you're going to see that it says deploying. So we're going to scroll down a little bit. We have the web UI. It's deploying. Again, don't freak out. It's going to take a while. Deployment process. If you do run into an issue, one of the things that helped me as well is looking here. It has like the shell, it has the log, and it has the folder. So this helped me out a lot in troubleshooting the issue that I run into in terms of things not deploying, because then I would get an error that says like, hey, this doesn't really have permission to this particular thing. So if I was to click on, let's say, the log, for example, because this is where it was failing. If I click on that, for example, and I tell it the time, and it tells me like specific things. And this was really good in troubleshooting and fixing that issue. So if you run into an issue, this is a really good place to start looking into things and seeing where the issue is happening. So as you can see, TrueNAS is now deployed. So TrueNAS is fully deployed. It's good to go. And that is pretty much it for the deployment phase. One of the issues that you're going to run into is that once you're done with the installation, if it's a fresh installation, you're most likely going to run into an issue where if you click the web UI, it's going to tell you that access through untrusted domain. It's going to tell you that your domain is not completely set up or your domain is not added. You need to contact your administrator, and it tells you where to look for that file to be able to do that. So to be able to access that file, so if we go back to our data set, we set up everything for the app data configuration and the app data for it to reside in the app data folder. So for us to be able to access that, what we want to do is that we want to go back to the shell, like we did before. So go to system, go to shell, and sudo su, and then we're going to sudo su our way in here. So now what we want to do is we want to navigate into that folder, right? So it is, if I'm not mistaken, MNT, and of course I think Koroma. Yep, Koroma, and then the data set is application. I think application. So we want to cd into Nextcloud, last, and then we want to cd into app data. So let's one more time. And then what we're looking for is this configuration folder. So we want to go into this configuration folder to be able to see the document or the config file that we're looking for. So cd config ls. So what we're looking for is this guy. So keep in mind that this does contain a lot of sensitive information. Nano is already installed on this guy, so we can use it to be able to make configuration changes to the config. So I am going to blur out some things, of course, even though this is kind of a demo setup for now. So what we want to do is you want to do nano, and then you want to do config, do tab, and then P. There you go. And then we're going to go ahead and click enter. And then what we want to do is you want to scroll all the way down. So all the way down, what you're going to see here, what we're looking for is trusted domain. So when you see trusted domain, what you want to do is you want to add the IP address of TrueNAS into the trusted domain, or you want to add, if you already have a domain set up, you can add that domain in here, right? So in this case, all we have to do, instead of saying localhost, you can change that. Instead of saying Nextcloud, you can change that. So just okay, so that's the IP address for the TrueNAS machine. So we want to make sure that's trusted. Again, you can do IP or you can do domain. In my case, I don't have my domain set up yet, which I am going to set up soon. It's just IP. So for saving, it's Control X, and it's going to ask you, do you want to save? You say yes, and then you click enter. And then that's pretty much it. I'm going to say PWD here just so you can see where it is. And this is what it is right here, this guy, right? And in your case, it'll be different depending on what your data set is and where it's located and how you have it set up. But ideally, it's in the MNT and then your data sets, your initial data sets, and then whatever sub data set you have set up. So we're going to go back to application, and I go to web UI. Now you can see that we have the login. So now, before it was giving us the untrusted domain, now we have the login. So we can do admin and whatever we set for our password, if I remember it. There you go. And then enter the password. So once you enter the correct password, make sure you remember the password. It's going to give you kind of like an intro thing to TrueNAS. So this is basically what Nextcloud looks like. You have this guy. This is the home page. You can customize it, add more stuff, remove stuff, and things like that. You can add as many stuff as you want. So this is what your homepage look like now. You have your user account here, admin settings, accounts, set status and all that stuff, notifications. And then if you click on that, it takes you into the homepage. If you click on files, it takes you to all of the files. And then you can preview files. If you want to, it gives you the Nextcloud documentation and get out of it. So Nextcloud is a really good thing to have in your environment, especially if you're going to be managing a lot of files and things like that. It makes it easier for you to be able to have a central place where you store all of your files, documents, especially if you're building a lab environment, because a lot of times the idea behind the lab environment is not just so that you can just have things set up. At least in my head, when I build my lab environments, is that I want to document things, because your lab environment is where learning happens. And as much as we want to think that we remember everything, we don't. So having a place where you have something that have good management of some of the things that you're learning, some of the document that you're finding, some of the things that you're bringing in, and then just creating this environment for yourself that's like very conducive towards learning, but also being very well managed, is a really good thing to do. And Nextcloud will allow you to be able to do that. Now, the way I'm going to be using my Nextcloud is going to be different. I know a lot of people install Collabor for browser editing. So if in case you want to edit like things like, let's say, a Word document, for example, if I go to documents here and I click on a Word document, you'll notice that it will not open it Collabora is not installed. Collabora is the components that allow you to be able to do in-browser editing. So similar to LibreOffice. So this is what I was saying the last time, where LibreOffice is on the container side, so server level kind of installation. Wherein Collabora is like kind of web based. So you will look at a document, you would take that and pass it to Collabora, which allows you to be able to do editing in browser. I will talk a little bit more about this on my next video. Well, maybe the third video, because the next video I want to kind of go through setting up certificates and DNS and all that stuff. But my next video, where I will go through Obsidian installation, we're going to touch on Nextcloud a little bit more, because Nextcloud is going to be where those documentations are going to be stored. And when we go through that, you're going to see how I plan to use Nextcloud. A lot of the time when I'm going to use Nextcloud is the Nextcloud is going to have the client, the desktop client installed on my desktop. And then that's how I'm going to access data. And that's how I'm going to put the data in Nextcloud, and it just syncs up to my Nextcloud install, which is this guy right here. Or in my case, once it's set up, the Nextcloud that I have set up in it. So as far as the setup go, guys, that's pretty much all for this video. Nextcloud should now be up and running. Again, the major headache that I had for this one was the permission. It took me a while to kind of get through it, but once you do that, everything is up and running and everything is good to go. And that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Nextcloud is now fully up and running. I'll be using it as a drop zone for this environment, like I said earlier. I don't need things like Collabora right now, because I'm not going to be doing any sort of like in-browser editing. I'm going to install Nextcloud on the local computer and be able to go through things that way. I'll talk a little bit about that in my next video. Well, the video after my next video, because I want to talk about setting up Obsidian for note-taking in this environment, and I'm going to be using Nextcloud as the location as to where all of the data is going to be saved. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in that video. I still have a few things that I need to set up for this environment, so things like DNS, certificates, and some other stuff. But we'll cover that in the next and upcoming video. Again, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. And as always, do not forget to stay geeking. I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.